Good morning, Hannah Hamilton. I am Alex Hammonds, and today I will be conducting your interview for the Registered Nurse New Graduate Labor and Delivery Residency position. I will be asking you some specifically curated questions to determine how you perform in the clinical setting. Let's get started. Ms. Hamilton, please tell me about a time in clinicals at FTCC in which you delivered high-quality, patient-centered care to individuals, families, groups, and communities in varied settings.
During a clinical shift at one OPS, I had a patient that had dementia. This patient required an insertion of a Foley catheter. The nurse informed me that this patient was challenging to do any perineal care and that inserting the Foley catheter would be very challenging. So I took that information and decided that it would be smart to gather all of my information, all of my tools that I would need, and anything that I would potentially need, I would gather ahead of time before I interacted with the patient. As a student nurse, I know that dementia patients are a challenge because there's potential that they will forget what's happening if you leave the room, potentially even if you're still in the room. So I want to prevent that as much as I could. So I gathered my supplies ahead of time. I got to the patient's room and I then interacted with the patient. I introduced myself. I started building trust with her. I used therapeutic communication. I held her hand and I maintained eye contact, and I talked with her until we got to a place where she was okay with continuing with the procedure. She understood what was happening and she felt safe for me to begin. So I set up my sterile field and we began with the procedure. I walked her through what we were doing and I maintained the same calm demeanor, the same tone of voice, and smooth transitions between steps. There was nothing that was fast or jarring or anything that would have jolted her out of this calm that we were having. And because of that, she was very go with the flow. We maintained eye contact and I was able to successfully insert the Foley catheter without increasing her anxiety and without causing additional harm to the patient.
And why does this example meet this objective?
This example is great for providing quality-centered care for the individual, mainly because there was safety provided, there was therapeutic communication provided, and also the patient was in control the entire time. I was able to successfully insert the Foley catheter while also maintaining sterility. This was good for the family because this patient was about to be discharged and therefore she required a Foley catheter to go home. This was good for the community as a way, for me to learn a way to communicate with patients in the Alzheimer's community, and a way for the students that were with me in that room to see ways to take care of patients that are in a heightened state of emotions, that it is okay to take your time and that it is not helpful to rush a situation that really needs a careful hand to get through, especially if the patient has dementia. So they're already terrified, plus they have memory issues. So any extra pressure is not going to make the situation better, and it's going to potentially cause issues down the line with infection or trust issues with healthcare, which is not going to be beneficial.
Tell me how you used something you learned from one of your class assignments to incorporate best practice and professional values and standards into compassionate nursing practice.
When I was assigned to Highsmith Rainey on the third floor for my clinical assignment, I noticed that a lot of the patients had tracheostomies. As a student nurse, it's my job to see the care that my patients need, and if I am uncomfortable with that level of care, to see if I need to teach myself or review the content in order to provide those patients with care. The demographics on that floor and the level of care that they require is very high, and I had determined that I needed to review the content. So I sought to review tracheostomy care that we covered in class, and I went over everything, and I was able to reinforce my knowledge that I had. And then because of that, I felt confident in my skills. I was able to suction the mucus from patients and change their dressings and oxygenate them with minimal assistance. I felt very confident in it, and I felt that I was providing safe care as well. And I 100% attained that to going back to the material that was taught during class time and reviewing that and reinforcing my knowledge.
Did the outcome of using this new knowledge improve the outcome of the situation you used it for? Why or why not?
The outcome of using this knowledge has improved the overall oxygenation of my patients, the overall confidence of myself as a nurse, the autonomy of myself as a nurse, and the overall safety of my patients.
Tell me an example of how you have demonstrated cultural and global congruency in the healthcare environment with diverse populations in promotion of healthy lifestyles and preventative health screenings and clinicals at FTCC.
During the Nursing 212 clinical, I was lucky to participate in a community outreach program. A part of that day was spent feeding the homeless at the Manna Church Dream Center. Our job that day was to prepare lunches, put those lunches together, and then feed people in the community buffet style. And it was very illuminating. We put the stuff together. We made sandwiches. We did a bunch of things, but we also lined the food up and gave all these people options, and we're able to provide them with sustenance and hydration as well. When we were able to feed them, we were able to talk to them, assess them, see how they were doing, provide them with the nutrition, provide them with hydration, and that was really rewarding. But also during that day, there was a women's health nurse that was there, and she was providing free women's health screenings for any of the women there that were interested. And if we asked them if they wanted to participate, they could go inside and get a free women's health screening. So that was really cool and interesting to see that that was something that was offered at this free lunch. So we were feeding the community, but we were also able to ask these members of our community if they needed anything else besides this one meal. We could see if they needed clothes. We could see if they needed any other resources that this organization could provide. And this specific day, they also had women's health screenings, preventative screenings that the women there could have access to for this day, and they might not have access to screening. So that was really a nice thing to see provided for them.
How does incorporating this impact how and what you present in patient discharge information and education?
This experience gave me insight into challenges that members of our community have in Fayetteville and how nurses can use their education to help assist with these challenges in unique ways. It also gave me foresight into the creativity that organizations like Manna Church have to think outside the box, like using a free lunch to draw women in to have a free health screening, that they can provide extra resources to people that are coming for food and give other opportunities out there to people that don't have these opportunities.
Describe a situation in SIM or clinicals at FTCC where you functioned as an effective member of the healthcare team, demonstrating excellent interprofessional collaboration.
During my clinical at one OBS at Cape Fear Valley, it was very common for nurses to participate in the nurse and doctor rounds during the afternoon round meeting. During the one shift, my nurse asked me if I would want to participate in the rounds and speak for the patient that I was assigned to that day. So I took the challenge head on, and I gathered as much information that I could about my patient and prepared my report prior to the meeting. I took it very serious. So when it was my turn to present my patient, I gave them the information. I handed over all the updates for the day and any changes that I saw. And I felt very confident and I felt like a real nurse, and was able to answer questions and answer them when they had questions, which I felt very, very good about. And I think that because my nurse mentor for that day informed me ahead of time, far ahead of time, that that's something that she wanted me to do that day, I was able to take the time to prepare for it and really focus on any changes within the patient to prepare for report for the day. And it really prepared me to hyper focus on any updates and any small changes within the patient for that day. And it helped me communicate professionally and clearly and so much stronger than if I was provided with that opportunity minutes before I entered the meeting.
What skills have you learned in classes at FTCC have increased your communication skills in sim and clinicals at FTCC?
My communication skills have improved significantly since being within FTCC and the nursing program. I have improved my patience, my leadership, my delegation, my thoroughness, directness, and I think that attributes to any communication that's on the floor, any communication with teachers, and also with use of practicing with the SBAR. It plays a major role in that also, to understand what is important, what do I need to make the biggest point, and cut out the fluff.
Describe to me how you have demonstrated beginning skills in point of care leadership, management, and care coordination using effective communication skills through either successful completion of class projects or a clinical situation or experience.
During the nursing program at FTCC, every class we're required to do a group project. During one of these group projects, our group was not working well together, and some members of the group did not want to put in the same amount or quality of work as the other members of the group. During this group project, we were getting dangerously close to the due date and our project was not completed. We were having disagreements about the quality of the work that we wanted to submit, and people were not completing their portion of the project that they agreed to in the beginning. So instead of saying that I did my portion and letting the rest of the people finish theirs, I decided to take the leadership role, and get everybody together, try to come up with a solution for our group project. I didn't want it to fail, and I didn't want to submit something that I wasn't proud of. So we got together last minute, came up with a bunch of ideas, and finally settled on something that everybody was okay with and happy with. We had our message now, we had a cohesive idea, and we were able to move forward. So at this point, the people that wanted to, or that were originally assigned to complete the video portion, did not want to finish the editing portion of it, or did not think that it required any more editing. And so because of that, and because I wasn't happy with where it was at video-wise, I also determined to take the lead on that as well. And I edited the video to a level that I was happy with the quality of. We ended up submitting everything on time and everything to a high quality that I want my projects to be completed at. We were able to get a lot of positive remarks from the teacher, and everything in our project received an A.
How do you plan to grow and strengthen your leadership skills in your practice as a nurse?
I believe that strong leadership is a cornerstone of a great nurse. Because of that, I know that building strong leadership is extremely important to become a great nurse. I will try to continue to build my leadership skills by seeking advice and mentorship from who I determine is a strong leader, asking about tips and skills from other nurses, asking other people what they like in a leader, what they admire in leadership, and how they like to be led, what they prefer in a leader. And I will also use my team and use their skills to the best of their abilities.
Describe how you implement safe and competent care to individuals through both system effectiveness and individual performance in varied healthcare settings.
As a student nurse and a registered nurse, it is my responsibility to provide safe and effective care. To provide that to my patients, I have to maintain system effectiveness and provide strong individual performance. Following hospital policies and procedures, using evidence-based practice, using electronic health records, and following infection control are ways that I can help with system effectiveness. Assessing my patient quickly, prioritizing care, trusting my nursing gut, and embracing my empathetic nature are all ways that I can implement my individual performance. By combining my system effectiveness skills and my individual performance skills, I can provide safe and effective care to my patients.
Tell me about a specific clinical situation in which you identified something unsafe for a patient and what you did about it then and why. Would you change what you did then now? If so, why and what would you do differently?
When I was on clinical at one OBS, I walked by this patient's room. It was not my patient, but he had a look of fear on his face and I couldn't walk away from him. So I asked if he was okay and he shook his head no. So I did hand hygiene. I walked into the patient's room and tried to figure out what was wrong. I asked him what was going on and he couldn't really talk to me, but I did figure out that he recently had a chest tube removed a little bit ago and he was extremely anxious. He could not catch his breath and every time he coughed, there was flatus coming out of his chest wound bandage. It was not sealed and he was extremely distraught from this flatus coming from his chest wound. I knew that this was not something that was normal. I had never seen anything like this before and it was alarming to me, so I determined to call someone for help. Luckily, my instructor was in the hallway, and so I informed her what was happening, and I determined to stay in the room with the patient in order to provide him comfort and therapeutic communication. She sought out the patient's nurse and to figure out if they could do something to help the patient while I stayed with him. He had a sensor in his room, and I thought it would be helpful to measure his O2. I was concerned about his oxygen level because I've never had anything like this happen before, and I just thought that there's something going on with his lungs, so let's measure his oxygen levels. So I determined to put an O2 sensor on him, and I put that on, and I saw that his level was good, but he was still extremely anxious. So I educated this patient that his O2 level was good. He should be at 100%. And right now he was at, I believe he was at 97 to 99. And what I ended up doing was I turned the monitor within his vision so he could watch it and he could see where his oxygen level was at. And because of that, his heart rate decreased and his anxiety level decreased, because even though he was having flatus come out of his chest whenever he was coughing, he could still see that he indeed was getting enough oxygen, and that was able to bring his anxiety level down. Meanwhile, while I was helping the patient in his anxiety, my instructor was seeking out the nurse. They were able to contact the physician who took the chest tube out and schedule a chest x-ray to see what was going on with the patient. Ultimately, they determined to reinsert a chest tube, and the patient ended up being okay. At the time, I didn't know anything about chest tubes or anything about what was going on with him. I just knew that he was in distress, and I was afraid that he wasn't getting oxygen, so I determined to step in and try to get him some kind of help. I know that now what I would have done differently is, instead of shouting into the hallway, I would have used a call bell to call the nurse's station and get someone to help faster. I think that would have been more efficient to get a hold of his nurse. But I know that also if a patient gets a chest tube removed, that someone is supposed to stay with him for a period afterwards. And in this situation, that's not what happened. And I believe that if that did happen, he would have received help a lot sooner. So I'm happy that I was there to help him with that. And I'm happy that I learned that in that situation, I was able to be there to sit with him, to comfort him, and to teach him about his oxygen level and what his oxygen rating percentage is, so that he could monitor it and look at it and constantly see that he was indeed okay and that his body was getting enough oxygen.
Well, thank you so much for meeting with me today, Ms. Hamilton, and thank you for your interest in Cape Fear Valley. You'll be hearing back from us soon. Have a great day.